everybody? Welcome to Jacob's Quest, and today I just got out of seeing Thor: Love and Thunder, the newest MCU movie, and this is going to be a full spoiler review, so obviously go ahead and watch the movie before you watch this. And yeah, let's jump right into it. So first off, is this as good as Thor Ragnarok? Well, I would say sometimes yes, but mostly no, it's not as good as Thor Ragnarok. And I think it really just comes down to a lot of like the structural issues and the pacing issues. Thor Ragnarok was such a smooth ride because it just structurally went from A to B to C, and then the movie ended right when it needed to. Whereas this movie, it sometimes feels like it's kind of all over the place. You know, there's I wouldn't quite say directionless, but it does sometimes feel like there were a lot of reshoots and rewrites, and maybe some plot lines got added in that were not there originally. And so you can kind of feel where, like, oh, okay, we're back to this plot line, and this feels like it was sort of added on later, you know? And so I think that does kind of make it a little bit weaker than Thor Ragnarok. Basically just, it's a little messier, you know? It's a messier of a film. They tried to add so much to this one. There's a lot more humor, which some people are going to say that's a negative. You know, some people are going to say there's way too much Taika Waititi humor, but I guess my thing is, like, if you're going into a movie directed by Taika Waititi, you should know what you're walking into at this point. Like, this is his movie. This is exactly the kind of movie he would make, and this is what we got, you know? So if the humor works for you, then you're gonna have a great time here. You know, I know my theater was laughing like the whole time, and there's only one or two times where I felt like it went a little bit too far, you know, like maybe this moment didn't need to be there, or maybe that joke is being played out a little. But for the most part, it was working the entire time. So I had a great time with that. And there's also like a lot of heavy stuff that this movie deals with, and I think that maybe they were trying to kind of compensate for that, because this movie not only deals with the fact that Jane Foster has cancer, and that is, you know, a big emotional beat throughout the movie, and we kind of discover that her mom had cancer through a short little flashback, and you know, it's like this whole thing of her trying to deal with her mortality and choosing to be a hero and all that stuff. But also this movie literally opens with a child dying in the desert. You know, like that's like the thing that starts the plot of this movie. So this movie has a lot of heavy stuff in it, and I feel like they were definitely trying to, like, okay, we need to ramp up the humor, and maybe that's where some reshoots came in, or maybe some scenes were added to be like, okay, this is much more of a dour movie than they were trying to make, because a lot of some serious stuff happens here, you know? But luckily, I think they did manage to land that balance of tone that they were going for, even if it ended up with somewhat of a messy movie. But, you know, obviously I think that's going to be the most divisive thing, is like, did the humor tone work for you, or was it too much? And also, you know, this is something I've seen circulated online. Some of the visual effects are not like perfect, you know. It's definitely been a thing with a lot of modern blockbusters where it's like, okay, they had to meet a deadline. You can tell some of this is not looking as great as it could have been. Some of the green screen, some of it looks a little video gamey, but I think that's also a result of like how bright this movie is. There's like color everywhere in this movie. It's so brightly lit, so it just feels inevitable that you're gonna have some effects that just like pop out, and it's like, okay, well, this is, you know, this is obviously not a physical object that's on screen right now. But, you know, I don't know, maybe my eye is just used to it, because to be completely honest with you guys, this movie is, for all intents and purposes, this is a cartoon. This is a cartoon, you know, and it's got that vibe, and it's got that color, and it's leaning into it. So like, if you're not, you know, if you're coming into this expecting like a serious action movie, that's not what this is. You're gonna get your action, a lot of great action sets, but like, this is a cartoon. You know, it's fun, it's funny, it's colorful, it's, you know, and they make a lot of decisions here that I think there are gonna be some divisive moments. You know, like, for example, there's a whole scene where like the kids that were kidnapped for the entire movie, they are shortly granted the powers of Thor. You know, they all grab like random sticks and whatever else they can grab, like little stuffed bunnies, right? They're all briefly granted the powers of Thor, and so it's like an army of children fighting these monsters. And I can see, like, look, it's funny. The kids who watch this movie, they're gonna love that scene, right? But I can see some people out there saying, like, no, it's too jokey, it's too stupid, like, I don't know. I think this is definitely going to be one of those movies where it's like, if you walked into this knowing basically what you're going to get, you're going to love it. But if you walked into this expecting something else, then I don't know. Maybe this just wasn't the movie for you. But yeah, I love a lot of the decisions that were made here. And then my really biggest critique is that it was just kind of messy. It was just a very messy, like, the editing and a lot of the structure and the pacing was kind of messy. But I love everything that's in there, so like, imagine a really, really great meal, but it's kind of sloppily put on the plate, and it's like, okay, I still love all the ingredients that are here, but maybe it doesn't always look great. And then the ending, we gotta talk about the ending. Okay, so first they do a lot of cool things, like they introduce Eternity from the Marvel comics. He doesn't talk or anything. I don't know if he's ever supposed to talk, but they do show him, and that's pretty cool. So we're finally getting into more of these, not just gods, because obviously they go to was it Omniscient City or something. So obviously we see Zeus, and we see a whole bunch of other cultures, gods, just like thousands of them, right? But we're finally getting to, like, more of these celestial deities, Eternity and the Watcher. We see statues of all these people back there. And like, I kind of wish that we got some of this stuff more explored as to, like, specifically what's going on, because I know that in the comics these are supposed to be really important figures, but for all intents and purposes, Eternity is like a wishing well. I think they even call him that, literally. And basically Gore wants to get there so that way he can wish all the gods dead, which would be like a much faster way than trying to just go god to god and just kill them with a sword, right? Which is what he had been doing. And basically at the end of the movie, Jane Foster is dying because she decided to be Thor, and that's like wrecking her body with the cancer, and her body can't take the strain of it. And so Gore is basically convinced through seeing, like, oh, these are gods who can love and who can choose love. Maybe not all gods are bad, right? And so instead of wishing all the gods dead, he instead wishes for his daughter to come back. And I don't know what exactly they're implying. Her reflection in the water was like the shape of Eternity. So I don't know if it's like, oh, she's part Eternity, so she's got, like, powers, because they show her with laser vision, which, by the way, I don't know where that laser vision came from. That just came out of nowhere, so she has laser vision. But basically Thor is left alone to raise a daughter, basically. And they show, he's making her pancakes, and now she's gonna take Stormbreaker, and he's taking Mjolnir back. And basically it ends with him teaching her how to be a hero, and they go off and do, like, an action scene together. So this movie has a lot of, like, kids doing action, which, I think the plot line of the kids being kidnapped honestly was not necessary for this movie, because it feels like they had plenty of motivations to go after Gore and to stop him. So the kids being kidnapped and him taking them, that felt like an extra step that was like, I don't know if you really needed that. Maybe that was an add-on, they reshot all that stuff. I don't really know, but that didn't feel necessary for the movie, but it was there, and the kids who watch this movie, I'm sure, are gonna love all those moments, right? There's the other thing that this movie does is that this movie introduces a lot of things that kind of come out of nowhere. We're like Heimdall now has a son, like, just living in New Asgard. They've never mentioned a son before. It was never, like, even implied, but he just has a son. So like, okay, all right, I guess he has a son. And also, like, they kind of make this repeated joke of maybe Stormbreaker and Mjolnir are somewhat sentient, because we'll see Thor talking about Mjolnir and how much he misses the hammer, and then Stormbreaker will show up, and Thor's like, oh, no, I didn't mean it, Stormbreaker, I like you, you're great, So it's like, it's kind of unclear if this was just a joke or if the weapons are actually kind of sentient. Kind of unclear. I mean, he gives Stormbreaker a beer at one point. He like pours a beer on it, like, here's your first beer. Like, so like I don't know if he's just joking or if it's like for real. It was pretty interesting. So yeah, just overall, it's a fun time. It's a cartoon. That's my thing. Is like, it is a fun cartoon. It's colorful. It's not taking itself too seriously, but it does have serious moments. And you know what? It expands the MCU lore, and that's honestly all I really needed it to be. I didn't need it to be anything more than that. So I don't know. I know a lot of people out there are gonna say it was too humorous, it was too light, they're not taking it seriously enough. But like, honestly, I think for some of the topics that this movie covers, I was kind of glad that they're like, you know what, maybe they went too far for some people, but for me, I think they hit a good balance of like, we're gonna maximize the humor because we're gonna go to some dark places with like really serious subjects. So, we don't want this to be like a really depressing movie. So we gotta try and hit that like humor really up because, one of our heroes has cancer. So I definitely see what they were going for there. I had a great time with this movie. I did. It's not as clean as Thor Ragnarok. It's got its problems, its pacing, its structure. It's some of the effects don't look great. Some of the plot lines seem like they were added on like later in the shooting. They were just reshoots or something. But that didn't stop this from being just a fun time. And I think that's like, it's when it succeeded in that, despite like all of those things that would seem like great hindrances on any movie, the fact that it was still a really fun time despite its flaws, that works for me, because I think about other movies that have come out, like Black Widow was pretty forgettable. Eternals had some great visuals and some great moments, but ultimately it was just kind of boring at times, like Eternals, I was kind of like waiting to fast forward through some parts of Eternals. It was not that entertaining. This movie has entertainment value. That's where its strength lies. So like, it has a lot of problems, but it is entertaining, and I think that's like the biggest thing it could hope for. So this movie did its job. It's what I expected it to be, and we can always be like, well, man, I wish it was as smooth and as structured as well as Thor Ragnarok, but I would say that didn't stop it from being a really fun time. Anyways, so that is my review of Thor Ragnarok. One of the post credits, Hercules is coming. Zeus is still alive. Thor had like stabbed him with his own lightning bolt earlier, and he was presumably dead, but Zeus is actually still alive, and he summons Hercules to, I don't know, make mortals afraid of him, I guess. That's pretty much the ending of that, I think. So I don't know where he's gonna show up. I know Hercules is like a reoccurring thing in the comics, but I don't know, where he would show up. I don't know if they'll save him from Thor 4 or if he'll just show up in some other show or something. And also, what's the other post-credit scene? Jane Foster goes to Valhalla. So when she died, I guess she was deemed, she had the god powers and she was a hero. She died in battle, so she goes to Valhalla and she meets Heimdall there, which I thought was interesting because I cannot imagine that they, because I have to imagine Idris Elba's contract was over when his character was killed off like several years ago, right? So the fact that they managed to bring him back for like the smallest cameo ever, I'm almost wondering, like, are these characters from Valhalla, are they coming back somehow? Like, are they gonna be like important later? Because it feels like you wouldn't show that unless you're gonna be like, oh hey, these characters still exist in the afterlife somewhere, like Valhalla is a place, because we saw in Moon Knight you can go to the afterlife and you can manage to find some gateway back. I mean, like the main character of Moon Knight did that, so it doesn't seem beyond a reason that like, yeah, they're in Valhalla, but they can find a way to get them out of Valhalla. Very interesting, like they wouldn't put that there for no reason is all I'm saying. Anyways, so that was Thor Ragnarok. And also, so what I've been trying to do is, because there's so many Marvel movies at this point, I generally like to put them in one of two categories. This is either going to be a movie that I will watch on its own when the mood strikes and I'm like, you know what, I just want to watch that movie again, and I'll put it on. Or it's a movie on the bottom category where I'm like, when I do a Marvel marathon, when I'm gonna like, all right, I'm gonna watch literally all of it, then I'll watch that movie again. But beyond that, I'm not really interested, you know. And there are like a decent amount of MCU movies that are on that category. So where does this movie stand? Where does Thor Love and Thunder stand? This one stands still in that upper category. I can definitely see myself watching this again because it's just got those great moments, and the humor really works for me. I know it's not for everyone, but like, I don't know, the humor is definitely like my style of humor. Like I get it, you know, like most of it works. There are times, like I said, there are times where I'm like, he didn't really need this joke there, but most of it is like, yeah, I'm getting everything that's happening here. So anyways, that is my Thor Love and Thunder review, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.